Knowledge is power. Make an impact by learning more. Call us right now for more help at 866-945-8070. And I'm going to start the live. I'm going to go live on Facebook. Go live.
All right.
Hold on. It's setting up the webinar for Facebook Live. We lost Dennis. We lost Mr. Thompson. And we are officially live with Zoom In with Seth, David, and Friends. Good morning. Happy Friday. Flex your muscles. Flex your brain muscles. We're going to give you some, as Dennis likes to call it, some brain candy this morning. We're going to hopefully have some fun and learn something along the way.
All right.
So there's Dennis. Dennis is back. Dennis, how's that?
Buenos dias.
I'm eating my breakfast. That's why I turned off the camera.
I saw you bring it in. Is that a waffle you're having there?
Chocolate chip waffle.
Nice. Maple syrup?
No.
No maple syrup.
Again,
Blood sugar.
Get enough sugar as it is.
Excellent. Well, we have a great show planned for today. We have some stragglers probably that'll be joining us a little bit late this morning. And a couple of housekeeping things. So next week's Zoom, just for those of you who are keeping tabs, we're going to be doing tips and tricks for content creators. So we're going to be looking at tips and tricks for writing blog posts, creating videos, if you want to do a podcast, those kinds of things. We'll be talking about that all next week. Excuse me. But today we've got a special guest, and we're bringing on from my good friend, Mariette Martinez. You all know her. And Mariette and I go back, and through Mariette, I've met her brothers, and I've met her sisters, and I've met her whole family, and I feel like I should change my name to Martinez, Seth Martinez, right? Right? And with that, I want to introduce Yvette Salas.
Oh, I love that. Well, that's so Latino, right? You meet us, and we mostly all have large families, and we can tend to come off a little, obnoxious because we like loud mariachi music. But hey, in every culture, there's, the rock and roll, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So anyway, well, first and foremost, good morning to everybody. I love the fact that Seth starts his show early. I feel so productive. That's what I told him. I'm like, I already feel so productive. So good morning. I think this is a really, really hot topic, and the great thing is it's being recorded. I'm sure we'll get a ton of views on it. And so first and foremost, Yvette Salas, Relationship Manager at Camino Financial. Thank you, Nerd Enterprises in Between Well and Maine, for having us here to share what we do, who we are, and why we do what we do, and who we serve, right? That's what Seth instructed me to do. Let us know.
Who you are, what you do, whom you do it for, and why you do it.
All right. So I do want to tell you, yes, my sister, Mariette Martinez, huge ambassador, not only the small business community and your community, you are her tribe, but also has been a huge supporter of Camino Financial. Since day one, she's, like me, having a love affair with our work, which is a great thing to say. So again, thank you for being here. We can dive right into it. I made well, not I, but we as a team put together this beautiful presentation, and I think you all enjoy it. And we're going to learn a lot.
All right. Excellent.
Get right into it. All right. So I think you'll share my screen.
Yeah, no, just go ahead and, same as you did before. Click share
Oh,
screen.
okay. Got it. Mm-hmm. All right. Can you guys see me?
I still don't see your screen. I'm still looking at you.
Okay, hold on. Let's do this. All right. Where are we at? Zoom meeting. Share my screen. Why is it just not? Oh, there. Sorry, I missed a step, guys.
Yep, no worries.
Right. There we are. And does everything look good?
Everything looks beautiful. I'm going to turn off that enter chime.
All right. So we're going to dive into it. I think a great place to start is, so one thing Camino Financial does do, we do have a niche in the Latino market. So I think it's going to be really important that you know why we chose this niche, why we believe that this market does not only merit the attention, but needs this attention and needs it now. So we'll go over that, the challenges facing entrepreneurship in the Latino market. And then, afterwards, I'll dive more into the product, what we do, how we're doing it, and then how you could be a part of that and how we do need the help of everyone. This is a larger, the challenges that they're facing, and if they don't get the right tools to be able to deal with them, can affect the entire economy, and I'll explain why. Okay,
Excellent.
so let's first go into it. So just looking here, the challenges facing Latinopreneurs. I'm not sure if any of you are aware, but the Stanford Graduate School of Business, in collaboration with LBA, which is Latino Business Action Network, they create a report and publish it every year. It's titled "The State of Latino Entrepreneurship." So a lot of the data that we'll be using, that we use in this presentation, is provided by them and the census and other research conducted on Latino entrepreneurships. So the big conclusion from last year's report is that Latinos do struggle more than any other ethnic group in accessing capital. So that's what Camino Financial does. That's our main go-to product, is that we offer small business loans. We have a niche in the Latino market. And why? Because we feel that we are uniquely positioned and really have the passion that it's going to take to help these Latino small businesses not only access capital, but really bring these businesses to mainstream. So let's start by comparing some of these numbers. So 12% of Latino-owned businesses access bank loans, compared to 18.4 white, 15.3 Asian, and 14.2 Black-owned firms. So as you can see, they're not accessing the bank loans as other ethnicities and segments of the small business community are. Now, why is this? Why are Latino-owned businesses struggling? We'll be the first to say that it's not the bank's fault. We never, cannot, ever blame them. We actually partner with banks as an alternative lender. We understand the challenges that they have, the credit boxes they need to check, and ultimately they're depository lenders, right? So they're very different than us. We are not a bank. We do not receive the deposits of the public. So we are not under the same regulation as they are. We don't have to check all the boxes like they do. Therefore, we can take on more risks. So that's why the way we set it up is we are not a bank, not yet. So let's take a closer look.
By the way, I like how you said "not yet."
We don't know.
You know what the word "yet" stands for? Where I come from, it stands for "you're eligible too."
I love that. So let's take another quick look. Let's look at the other couple points that we have here, right? So 2 out of every 3 skilled firms defined so skilled firms in the Stanford Latino Entrepreneurship Report stands for businesses that are reporting an annual revenue of $1 million or more. Okay, so 2 out of every 3 skilled firms, they just don't have they basically do not access or not merit necessarily the external investment from a third-party investor. So they're still struggling, right? So and for the reasons that we're going to go into in a little bit, right? And so we all know that banks are more conservative. So they're not. So not only are they not accessing like angel funding and maybe other third party, but mainly from banks. Banks being the most conservative of those, they're not accessing that capital through the banks. Okay. Also, on the demand side of the report, the collateral, right? So the Latino Small Entrepreneurship Report also showed that Latino businesses are more uneasy to pledge their personal assets to secure the loan. So that's another thing. And that also could be due too. You know, I mean, I don't think that's isolated just to Latino business owners. I think it's a lot, especially after the financial crisis. I'll tell you, my non-Latino clients, which we have a ton of those as well, they also are still uneasy. So that may not necessarily be isolated, but that is something that the Stanford report does show us. And another thing that, you know, I actually, to me, it's still like pinch me, because I feel like this stat is still something that I really have to absorb, because it so doesn't match Latina-owned personalities, is that Latinas don't perceive themselves as getting qualified for a loan. So, you know, that's another thing. So, you know, where's the opportunity here, right? You know, I think there's an opportunity here to create, there's more opportunity for look-alike companies like Camino Financial, that community lender for say, to come in and help them build that confidence so they can start coming forward and, you know, and feeling like that they can qualify for a business loan. So that's another thing the Latino Entrepreneurship Report is showing us. So, and then the fourth point here, you know, undocumented status. So 912,472 is actually 28% of about 3.3 million Latino small businesses in the U.S. So that's 28% of them are undocumented. That means they don't have a legal status in the United States. And so, you know, but they are a big part of the overall small business community, right? So we have to help these businesses grow because they're here and they're creating jobs and they're contributing a whole lot. I will tell you, it's in the multiple of billions of dollars to the U.S. economy. So that's what we see here. Those are some of the challenges facing Latino entrepreneurships, and really facing the dilemma that we're all facing right now is the challenges. How can we help these businesses go to mainstream? You know, how can we help them get to where they need to get to? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my next slide here. Danny, if you have any questions at this point that me and or Mariette, because she's very, very well versed. I don't know if you've ever seen her present on the Latino market, but she's also very well versed on the stats. Probably even more so than me, because she's been presenting so much on the main stage. So do any of you have any questions at this point?
No, I think it's all pretty clear, pretty interesting information.
I have a question for you, Yvette.
Oh.
So this is all awesome stuff. Again, you're right. I love, you know, sharing about it, and hopefully all of you know a little bit about it, since I like to share with this close community that's on this call about it. But I love how you keep on saying go mainstream. So before you go any further, let's just make that, like, let's put that in plain words. Like, how can this community, so right now, obviously you're speaking to a lot of accountants, a lot of forward thinking, you know, QuickBooks Pro advisors or Intuit, you know, accountants that really want to create a relationship with these entrepreneurs, and they want to make them mainstream and they want to have them do it the right way. So, like, give us some examples. What does going mainstream mean?
Right, right. Well, I think there's two parts of this. One is the Latino part, and then one is the small businesses facing issues accessing capital part. So it's two parts, really, and I don't want to confuse anybody, because I know right now I'm focusing more on the Latino angle of it, just because the name of our company is Camino Financial, and Seth told me, tell me who you are and who you serve. So I did want to make sure that we don't miss this part, because this is a big part of what we do.
And for those of us who aren't, let's just say, for lack of a better word, well-cultured, what does Camino mean? Camino
means road.
That's what I thought.
Yep.
So why Camino Financial? Why that name?
Why? Because we really believe that Latino small business owners need a road to bridge the gap between where they're at today and where they need to, and going to mainstream. We believe they need that bridge. They need the path. And we also believe that it's a journey. That it's just, you know, a lot of them come today, they may not even, I'll tell you to this day, and Sean and Kenny are not on the line, they're the founders because they're both commuting to work right now. But, you know, it hurts us, you know, to this day that there's so many Latino business owners that want to access capital and want to start doing the right things, and they don't even convert a fraction of what of the applications that come through. There's so many businesses. So we know for a fact it's a journey. And so we're constantly reminding them, like, hey, don't get disappointed if you don't, get approved right away. This is just the beginning. And then on top of that, we also complement everything we do with the education piece. And that's where we really need you guys to come in and help and, hire Spanish-speaking, employees, team members, partners, and really just because, even Latino, and this is something we can just go right off the slide, like get off my presentation, but there's a lot of need, even in educating Latino professionals. And that's where I think las tres maestras, that's where they're taking, they're really taking the lead on that, I believe, in the accounting industry. So
I have a question.
Sure, Dan.
When you say undocumented, my background's tax, and
Sure.
does that mean they don't have social numbers or TIN numbers, or what does that mean?
That means they're legally not in this country. They're not able to be in this country. They do not have a social security number. But the IRS allows these people to start a business as long as they pay them, the IRS.
So they have like a TIN, like a TIN.
Okay. ID number.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's up for renewal, I believe, every 5, 7, 10 years. Like, it's one of those numbers. They do have to, check in and renew every so often. But yeah, they can legally have a business. And what I will tell you about that part, and this is something that we've been doing this for 5 years. And this is something that the accounting community taught me, is that it's many times easier for an undocumented, especially person, to start their own business than it is to get a job, because it's really hard for them to get employed when they're not legal in this country. So a lot of them not only they're already entrepreneurial, so this becomes very second nature for them to go into business.
Yeah.
I love the idea behind the name and the fact that what you're doing is you're kind of inserting yourself into your customer's story. That's so important these days. It's the reverse of what marketing used to do, right? It used to be just one way. We're going to tell you this is what we're going to do for you, and you just have to either come in our world and let us do it or go somewhere else, right? But nowadays it's so important, and I recently read this in an email that I got from Chris Brogan, where he talked about how important it is for us to realize as companies, as brands who are working with a customer who may be working with a very specific demographic, that we have to insert ourselves into their story, right? And he gave the example of Yeti and how great they do their branding and marketing, because their slogan is something like, like fill your cup and you're on your way, on your journey, right? So they're putting their product into the story of their customer. And when you describe why you named your company Camino Financial, and how, you're describing the road to success, right? The road to achieving your goals, the road to being able to build and grow your business because of what Camino Financial can do for their customers. You're doing the exact same thing. And I think it's great. You're putting yourself into your customer story and saying, instead of trying to do it the other way around. And so many brands get that wrong. So many.
Thank you, Seth. No, thank you. And another part that's a non-Latino, where the Camino is still very relevant, is Camino. We are in the Camino Real. We're, most of us are in, we're very familiar with the Camino Real if you're in the LA County and in California. So we know, one, it was very easy to spell, and it would also resonate with the non-Hispanic community, because alternative funding is really here also to be a path to bankability. So a lot of small business owners, especially after the recession, they don't have access to pledge. They don't have access to business funds because of that, or because their credit got hurt. So they do need to start bridging the gap to get back on their feet and getting a path to bankability. So we love the fact that Camino was relevant to both to all of our customers, not just a Latino customer, but to everybody, because this is something that's needed in the market.
Right. And so you guys underwrite the loans yourselves, right? You're
Yep.
not, it's not like some of these other products where you're
Nope.
sourcing it to others. You do your own
Absolutely.
underwriting.
We do everything in-house. Yep.
That's great. That's
So
great.
we'll go into that in a little bit in the next, I think,
Okay.
couple more slides. All right. So the next slide is, so, addressing again, we're going to go back into Latino-owned businesses and, where they're at and the challenges that they're facing. Let's see here. So what's going on here, right? There's a lot of opportunity to grow. Okay, I guess we first start with the $1.38 trillion. I think a lot of people want to know what that means. They're like, what is this $1.38 trillion that everybody's been talking about? Like, what does this really mean, right? So what this opportunity really represents, that if we were to help these businesses scale, like non-Hispanic businesses, this would mean for a $1.38 trillion injection into the U.S. GDP. In other words, if we can, so right now, I don't know it perfectly, but I believe the average small business employer small business, because there's a solopreneurs, the ones that don't have employees, and then the employers. Right, I believe that average revenue is about $580,000 for a non-Hispanic business, compared to Latino-owned, that average sales is $155,000, which is 27% of the non-Latino-owned business. So what that $1.38 trillion opportunity is talking about, that if we were to help these 3.3 million business owners, that are, and not all of them are struggling, right? But many of them that are not scaled firms, and those that are even scaled that are not accessing capital and not growing over what, growing to their full potential. That's what that number represents. That's what the opportunity we're talking about here. This is a huge opportunity. So, and this is all, these are all things that we all have access to. Again, a lot of this information is from the State of Entrepreneurship, but there's also other research out there that talks about this, what's going on here. So, and let's look also about, the growth, right? So we know that not only are, it's no surprise that Latino small businesses are growing in regards to new businesses being opened by Hispanics. Also, because we are outpacing the growth of Latino population. I know there's some numbers out there that maybe I think they say by 2050, there's going to be like, I don't know, like 40%. I mean, the numbers are huge, right? They're astronomical of how many Hispanics are in the U.S. But not only that, I mean, we really want to talk about our cultural things. So we're very entrepreneurial, and I think this graph really shows that. So if you look here, between 2007 and 2012, Latino-owned businesses grew by 46%. Even if you isolate only the employer businesses that actually employ people, they still grew by double digits in the graph. So if you look at the pink line, you'll see, that's the Latino size growth rate. And if you look at that in comparison to the Latino business count growth rate, there's a huge gap. So that means that we are very, very entrepreneurial. It also could mean because of the undocumented factor, so we can't discount that, right? And like I had mentioned, a lot of them, not only because they're entrepreneurial, but it may come to more ease for them to start a business and to find a job as an undocumented person in the United States. So that's really, this is an opportunity, right? There's a huge opportunity. As you can see, Latino-owned businesses are, a huge part of our small business community. And so that's why we know there has to be a company, and many more to come. We hope to be pioneering this, to help this community grow, because we do want them to succeed. They're a big part of our economy. And that's why, I'm hoping everybody on this call is going to pay attention and find a way to tap into this market. I think it makes a lot of sense. You can start by partnering up with Camino Financial, and at the end of the presentation, I'll tell you how you can do that. And that's what we got to do. We have to help them not only face the challenges of accessing capital, because and the reason why we're so focused on the access to capital when we bring that up, especially with the State of Entrepreneurship report, is because that report did show that the biggest challenge facing Latino businesses to grow is access to capital. So that's why I hone in on that a lot. I'm not just saying that to say it because we do small business loans. I'm saying it because that's actually the biggest challenge that they face, for some of the reasons that I just mentioned. So that's where we are. Do you guys have any questions on this slide?
Nope. I think everybody's just wondering, how can we jump in and get involved?
How can we get in on that 1.3?
Yvette, I think something really important to mention on this slide, and just so you know, this slide's took me a long time to figure out. And all the resources Yvette's mentioning, they actually are on the Facebook Live. I just posted a comment on there. When I did the main stage panel, I created a resource page with tons of different research findings, and you all have access to that. So I just wanted to mention that. But when you look at this chart, what's really kind of like, it's confusing at first, and then it's exciting, and then it's confusing again, is that what's happening here, the pink is actually showing you the Latino growth in the U.S. And so we were growing like incredibly fast, and now we're kind of tapering up, but we're still steadily growing. But Latino small business owner or Latino owner-owned businesses growth is growing faster than Latino population growth. So you're like, well, how is that happening? Well, what's happening is that we kind of slow down in our population. We have not slowed down in our entrepreneurship. So what you guys have to understand is that, yeah, maybe Latinos are not having as much babies, right? We're having maybe smaller families, but that doesn't mean that our entrepreneurship, our passion for being an entrepreneurship has slowed down. That's actually like skyrocketing. So I hope everyone on this call understands, like, we are not going anywhere. Like, we are super young, super excited, and we need your help. And me as a Latina, when Yvette said that, and it's so true, there's actually a Latina, it's called Latina 2.0 research study. It's like a 20-page research study specifically on the Latina-owned business, because we literally are, and I don't want to go ahead and pull myself up, but I'm going to be honest with everyone on this call, we are the #1 fastest growing population over any other entrepreneurship population in the U.S. Latinas, not Latinos, Latinas, like the women. And so, but we struggle with actually accessing capital and growing our business. So it's like, what's up, guys? Help us. Help the Latina. Help your sister that's on these calls with all of you. We need your help. Dennis, what's up?
It strikes me as that probably part of the problem with accessing capital is accounting records. And, I assume that's where we come in, is making sure that you can qualify, or that, if we submit loan apps to your group or your company, that will be based on, like, say, QuickBooks or whatever, and that it'll be easier to qualify. Is that where we're kind of going with this?
Dennis, that's exactly where we're going with this. Thank you for that awesome segue. So I'll let Yvette take it over, but exactly, Dennis, that's what I'm hoping you're all capturing from this. We need clean books.
And just real quick, I want to interject that based on what you just said, Mariette, now I want to know how I can become a Latina. Just saying.
You're kind of a Latina already, sister, my brother.
Out with us. Keep continuing. So I do, Dennis, you brought up a great point. Yes, absolutely. Latino-owned businesses need to, I think it starts with, one, they need to find the value. Why should they invest? Because the truth of the matter is, especially the type of, if you see the industries that Latino-owned businesses are in, they are in a lot of labor-intensive type of industries like construction and trucking and these types. They're still a lot very heavy in those industries. So what we need to do is we need them to go to see the value of spending of investing, making the expense and thinking that it's an investment in their business and in the future of their business. And I think that's the first way to do it, is how do we show them the value? And so, and I'll tell you one thing. I mean, Camino Financial, we just recently, after 5 years, added a couple more products to our menu of offerings. But, there was times where we're like, is it the loan? Is it not the loan? But we said, no, it is a loan. It is a loan because they do need that carrot, they do need that motivation, and capital is definitely a motivator. So I think the number one thing is, how do we show Latinos to value the services of bookkeeping, of having a team of accountants, right? And their accounting team. Maybe depending on how big the company, maybe they need a CPA. They need an accountant, to help them with their financials at the end of the month. They need a bookkeeper to help them with the data entry, the everyday, day-to-day bookkeeping. So that's another thing that we do at Camino Financial. We're not just talking about loans. If you go into our Facebook page and see, how we engage with our members. We don't even call them customers anymore. That's taboo at Camino Financial. You don't call them customers. We call them members. They're all a member of Camino Financial. And so that's the start, is one, showing them the value, showing them the end game, what it's going to look like for them if they start investing and really working on their business the right way and doing it the right way. And then what are the risks? You also have to have a scaring tactic, what's going to happen if something happens to you? A lot of these first generation Latinos, some of their children may not take over the business. These are not going to be necessarily legacy businesses as they intended. Why? Because, and I love how Carmen mentioned it at Woodward, in her presentation, when Mariette and Carmen, and I'm sorry, I can't think of the other lady's name, sorry. But anyway, okay.
Vanessa.
Oh,
Vanessa.
Vanessa.
I cannot remember. That's my middle name. But anyway, they how they spoke about it takes a couple generations to get educated Latinos. I love how Carmen mentioned that, because it's true. But what's happening with that is a lot of these first immigrant small business owners will not be passing on their businesses to their children.
And going back to Dennis's question, sorry to interrupt. Sean is mentioning in the live Facebook feed, he says, excuse me.
Yeah.
He says, let's not forget about taxes. We need to also teach our business owners, and not just Latinos, about the value of reporting their taxes, right? So that's important to remember also. So educating them about the importance of having good bookkeeping records, because having those bookkeeping records can help you get the financing that you need, which can help you get your business to scale.
Yep.
Right?
Absolutely.
And same thing with the tax.
Especially payroll taxes.
Yep.
Right. Which leaves me wondering, okay, so let's just say I want to get in on the 1.38 trillion. How do I do that logistically? I mean, my Spanish is terrible, right? Mm-hmm. And I realize most people speak English pretty well, but is that a factor? Is that something I should consider, or should I just jump in and start writing content targeting the Latino market and saying, hey, I would love to have your business and do your bookkeeping for you?
I don't think you have to start there. I think you can start by partnering up with companies like Camino Financial that are already there and that are already doing a lot of the heavy lifting, because I will tell you that this is not a cheap market to target. It's very expensive, as a matter of fact. That's why we're a VC-backed up company. We've raised a ton of equity, in the company to do this, because it takes a lot of consistency. So I would say number one is partner up with people like Camino Financial. Number two, I will tell you, I don't know, none of my customers really tell me, Yvette, a lot of them do want to transact in Spanish. So it is important slowly as you're building the team to think about the U.S. population. It's going to be important to have Spanish speaking team members, period. I mean, that's just going to be a must. And the content is important. I can't discount the content.
Right. No, look, I've done some work with Carmen Manrique,
Yeah.
and I specifically coached her. I said, you have a valuable opportunity in terms of being able to produce QuickBooks video content in Espanol, because there's not enough of that out there, right? And I've actually considered maybe hiring somebody to translate my videos into Spanish somehow and maybe overlay the audio track with the Spanish version. I mean, I've thought about doing things like that. The reason I haven't, though, quite honestly, is because if I start getting inquiries from the Spanish-speaking community, then I have a concern that I don't really have the resources to support them, because my Spanish is terrible. I know Camino, I know Hola, and I know Yo estoy de los Estados Unidos. You know, that's about the extent of my Spanish.
Yeah. I want to say something really quickly. When Yvette keeps on saying partnering, I just want to give you guys a couple of examples, like real life examples. So when I hear partnering from the perspective of everybody that's probably hearing this or on the call or a non-Spanish speaker, so Camino has an amazing resource center. They do weekly blogs. They have a Facebook Live that they do weekly, and they actually do a full blog before the Facebook Live, which is theme based on the Facebook Live, and then they get it and put it in the show notes. So if you're a content creator, which most of us are, I would say a simple, easy way to partner is ask to be one of their guest bloggers and see what their upcoming theme is and see if you can write a blog on it. It's going to go ahead and backlink to your website, backlink to a bunch of cool stuff you're doing. And now you're going to become someone that actually is passionate about Latinos. And as Yvette mentioned, I think this is really, really key for all of you. Remember, Latinos are multi-generational. And so even though their parents may be first generation, they're leaving it to their generation, you know, X or Y or whichever, you know, millennials. And so those are usually second generation. So myself, my sister, and the co-founders of Camino Financial, so y'all know, we're second generation Latinos. So in other words, we were born here in the US. Our first language is English, but we just found that it's so important to bridge the gap for the Latino market, and that's why we're gearing towards them. So partnership number one could be something as simple as you've already written the blog or you're already guest blogging. So let's just let Camino know that you're interested in connecting with them. I would say the second thing would be to partner up with someone that focuses on that market. So I'll give you an example. I also don't speak Spanish perfectly. So I don't really like to take hardcore Spanish speaking accounting clients. But now I have accounting colleagues that literally only focus on accounting speaking clients, and I partner up with them, and we have, as Seth, you know, we have affiliate, you know, partnerships where I say, hey, I'm going to send you this, and you're going to give me whatever, whether it's a commission or a part of the engagement, whatever it is. And so I really am not in the business of taking on Spanish clients. I'm in the business of being the hub to find out how you can make that connection. So that's another way to partner with these businesses, is be that hub, be that person, that influencer that is going out there and saying, I don't particularly speak Spanish, but I will connect you with the tax preparer that's going to service you the right way. And that right there is servicing the market. It's as easy as that.
Right. And then I'll just end this slide with this one, is that keep in mind, like I had said, we're going into second and third generation Latinos now, and they do speak English. They do want to, you know, they're very tied to their roots also. So that's another opportunity for you. And there's, as you know, the millennial segment of our population is a lot larger than our population. So, so that's another, so just because it's, you know, right now, right, the first generation, they do like to transact in Spanish. No one can deny that. They do prefer to transact in Spanish, but you can tap into the market through people like, through companies like Camino Financial, but also do keep in mind what comes ahead of us. They're going to be English speaking as well. So you just want to start getting involved in the community, knowing and caring about the things they care about, because second generation Latinos, they really do care about their parents, and this is something very important and close to their heart. So that's one thing I do want to mention as we close this slide. And Dennis, what you said about the taxes, yes, that is their path to bankability. That's something we push very hard. It's like, hey, we have a product for you today, but this is your first, like, we want to take that first bet on your company, but we need to start graduating you. We need to get you on that journey. So that's where it becomes that you do have to start reporting, and you need to work with your accountants to work on tax strategies, and maybe you need to start incorporating. And I know Antonio mentioned that also at Woodward, about a lot of Latinos are coming, are starting to want to incorporate and become partnerships, and they want to start formalizing more of their businesses. So that's where that comes into play. Okay, so now let's look at our solution. So what's our solution? Okay, so first, our solution is it's a mobile lending. So it's a mobile lending designed for the underbanked. Now, why mobile? There are many reasons why mobile is important. The reality is that traditional forms of lending create a little too much friction. And for a very small business to access capital, friction is not a good thing. Most sole proprietors, solopreneurs, as you know, they're doing a lot of things on their own. So they're rolling up the sleeves, they're doing the day-to-day work of their company. And then at the end of the day, they still need to be thinking strategically on how they're going to access capital. And so the mobile definitely really helps remove a lot of the friction. We also know that through traditional lending, there's a process, right? And I will tell you, even in Camino Financial, there's a process, and for all the right reasons, right? So the goal here through the mobile lending design is that we want, especially for the first loan, and most of the time it's a micro loan, our goal is to remove as much friction as possible. That is the ultimate goal, okay? So I think there's some, misconceived notions about alternative funding, and please feel free to ask me any of your concerns about it. But I think that because it's online, because the process is more seamless, quicker, and less paperwork, a lot of people perceive alternative lending as being predatory, and that they assume that the rates are going to be extremely high. And not saying that there are a ton of bad players right now in the alternative market, because the market is very unregulated still. And that just is unfortunate, but it's part of, kind of a new market, right? I mean, this alternative lending has really just been around since about 2006. I think 2005 is probably the earliest records that I know about. So nobody can deny that. So if you need me to demystify the myth about alternative funding, I'm more than happy to help you do that. So before we get into that, I just wanted to kind of have you look under our hood and see how it actually works. So the features here that you see, the first is the API-driven application. That means that when people submit the application, we're actually connecting them with other databases. Like some that you're very familiar with, which would be like the credit bureaus. Also, we use another database called LexisNexis, which helps us identify that we're actually dealing with the borrower. And so that's the first step. So when they apply, they will go through an API interface-driven application. And not only that, and I'll tell you why. The tech part of it, but this also it really, really increases the user experience, right? So we're really big on the customer experience because we don't want them to drop off. We want them to keep on pushing. So that's why, again, back to removing the friction is really, really important.
I assume you also have in Spanish, the mobile app?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dennis. Great question. Yes, at Camino Financial, an applicant can opt in to transact with us from the very beginning, all the interactions, all the messaging in Spanish. So that's another amazing thing that we do. So everything that we've designed is, as a matter of fact, when we translate, we say we translate from Spanish to English. We always start in Spanish, just because we do have the niche market in the Latino market. But thank you very much for pointing that out. So then we move on to the proprietary underwriting, right? So it is our proprietary underwriting, especially for first-time loan borrowers and when going through the microloan program, I will say is definitely designed for the underbanked businesses. So cash-heavy, unformalized businesses that may not be reporting everything. The model really gives us an opportunity to bridge the gap a little more. And over time, it's gotten better and better because we have more borrowers and we're learning more on the performance of these borrowers. So that model is definitely has been evolving and improving over time, which as it's improving and we can show that performance to our investors, that is also helping us reduce get more competitive terms out to our borrowers, which is super exciting. We just went through a revamp of our program and we were able to drop our interest rates tremendously. We were also able to extend out longer terms. So this is something extremely exciting. Not only to the end, to the borrower, that they can now access alternative funding at very competitive rates, but it also is very good for us, and it's going to be very helpful, right, to everybody involved. And number three, and I think maybe the Zoom, I don't know if you guys can see it, but the unsecured loan part. So as you know, and this is something that I think we share as small business community, not just isolated to Latinos, is that, you know, small business owners right now, they just don't, and especially Latino-owned businesses that are very uneasy about pledging the collateral, they just don't have the collateral to pledge for loans with the bank. So we do offer an unsecured loan. And I'm going to say it's something really exciting here for you, for most of your clients that may have bigger size, higher revenues, is that we lend up to $400,000 unsecured, which is very amazing. There's not that many alternative lenders doing it with our underwriting proprietary model. So in other words, we take, there are some, but they do still are going in more into the mid-market. So they want that higher FICO scores, more like 660, 680 and up. And we actually can start looking at the borrower at 600. Also in revenue wise, for, going in unsecured loan, we can go as little in the microloan program as 30,000 in annual revenue. And again, in alternative lending, most of them won't touch it unless they're making 100,000 or plus in annual revenue. Again, they're not going to get the $400,000 loan, but at least they can get on the Camino and start getting some access to capital.
Can I have a question?
Sure.
I've got a client, he's Hispanic, and his primary way of financing now is factoring, which strikes me as pretty expensive.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to refer him to Camino, I mean, could I give him your email or phone number and just, try to make the connection that way to see if you could get him something cheaper? Because,
Absolutely.
like I say, to me, he's got some other issues, but, factoring seems to be his primary way of financing his business. He does lays cable, underground cable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he actually grosses quite a bit of money, but he's got some other issues. But in terms of, financing, it'd be nice to give him alternatives.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that is I know Marriott's like, hey, when do we need working capital? How do you know? That's actually one way, is when you have a lot of expensive ways of currently financing your operations, your working capital needs, and factoring is one of those. Yes, we can definitely help them wing out. I don't know if we can help him with all of his working capital needs to replace factoring entirely, but we definitely could take a look at it and see if we can slowly at least start winging him out of it with a short-term fixed loan. And I'll talk to you about the product too in a little bit. But yeah, no, that's definitely. And I want to tell you too, again, let's just talk about small business here. This product also is extremely competitive and extremely helpful for businesses that want to deepen into their capital structure. So it's not always a first-time borrower that we're lending to, or the micro enterprise, or the one that's informally ran. We also help the bigger size companies, the $3, $4, $5, $10 million companies that already have a line of credit, already have an SBA loan, but they just need that extra quick injection of capital for 50, 100, 200, up to 400,000. So that's another bar that we definitely serve a lot. And so I just want to make sure I add that, because I'm sure that's going to fit more the bars that you have. I mean, your clients.
Well, I was just thinking that'd be really helpful to communicate in Spanish, because I'm not sure how he's communicating with this current factor, you know.
Okay. Yeah, no, definitely. I'd love to talk to your client.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions for me here? Or?
Can I have $15,000?
Let's talk. Yeah. So again, all of this is built, let's get them on the Camino. That's what this is about. Wherever they're at, we're going to meet them where they're at, and we're going to do our very best to do that. I do want to add something that I think is a big disclaimer here. Though we do a lot of marketing to Latino-owned businesses, the disclaimer's on the bottom. We definitely abide and comply with the Equal Credit Opportunity Act. So everybody here is treated the same. There's not like a special interest rate for a Latino-owned business versus not Latino-owned business. We're not an affinity lender. We don't have to have a certain portion of our funds going to Latino-owned businesses. I know a lot of nonprofits do have those type of affinity loan programs. This is not one of those. So everybody here gets treated the same based on the proprietary underwriting model. Okay, I'll move on to the next slide. And so here, again, another peek under the hood. I think it's important that you guys understand what it looks like under our hood, how it works. So we do collect data points from multiple third parties. We do our bank verifications through an API. Right now, we're currently using a third party called Plaid. And then we also use another one called Decision Logic. It's very important for us because we do offer, seamless, paperless as we can process that we do verify the transactions of the bank account, since we're making a big bet on those cash flows. You may be familiar with some of the third parties that we use. We use, again, the LexisNexis, Experian. Currently, we're doing bank verification through Plaid, Decision Logic. We do, of course, for the bigger transactions, we still do collect some paperwork. But what this allows us to do, this process that you see right here, so the UCC due diligence, that's to help us stay in front of fraud. E-signature exchange, that's where we verify that person signing the dotted line is that person that we want to lend to. And so what this really helps us do is create a digital file, right? So before we even start collecting any paperwork, if required, depending on the loan size and the program that they fall into, whether it's a microloan or a small business loan, we actually already have a digital profile on these clients. So especially for the small micro enterprises that are not putting all their cash in the bank, they're under reporting, this is where this becomes very, very important information to be using big data and different data sets that we're able to collect from these third party organizations. This is really this is where we can make logical sense that this is a good business, that we can lend to this business. And again, back to the cost of serving this type of community. So Latino-owned businesses are small and expensive to service. So technology offers an avenue to drastically lower those costs. So it's all about financial inclusion and helping them get access. And we've been able to leverage technology. As a matter of fact, we have more engineers working for us right now than people like me that don't have an engineering background. Really allows us to be able to serve this client. And I'll add one other point here is, I don't know if you're aware, but there's studies out there that, for a bank to underwrite a $100,000 loan is the same as underwriting $1 million loan. So banks are simply just not designed currently in a cost-effective manner to underwrite small loans, which makes it really hard. And that's why they're outsourcing. If you're familiar with the space, a lot of them are outsourcing these loans to CDFIs and qualified nonprofit organizations.
What's a CDFI? Assume nobody knows what these acronyms mean.
Okay, so a CDFI basically is an organization that helps the banks meet they're basically, they have to meet certain criteria, and they need to get money back out to the people that they receive the deposits for. And so these CDFIs are certified to be able to take on the funds from the bank and make sure that they're deploying it back out and reinvesting it back out in the community. So it's like a reinvestment act that the banks have to comply with. So they have to show that so many dollars are going back out to the community that they're taking the deposits from. They just can't be taking deposits from the community and not sending that back out to them and making profit off these loans.
And
so,
why does it cost so much more to service a small business? Is it because the small businesses don't have the resources to make it easy to work with them? Like, what's the reason? Because I've been hearing this more and more lately in another space as well, companies that provide a certain kind of service. I don't want to go sideways on this, but I heard a similar thing, that this one particular service I was looking into, they won't serve companies with less than 10 users because they say it costs too much to service a smaller client. I wonder if there's a similar reasoning behind the two.
So I think the actual cost, like the labor cost, you know, the cost of having the people underwrite, the time that it takes is about the same to service a small loan versus a large loan. So, and assuming the large loan, they make a ton of more profit. That's
right,
number
because you're
one.
going to get more interest. So that makes sense in the loan industry. It's
Exactly.
the cost is the same to underwrite 100,000 versus $1 million. I
Yep.
want to underwrite $1 million loan because that's going to provide a much better ROI for me as the bank.
Exactly. That's number one. And two, a lot of banks still have not, and that's something that we're working with the bank with right now. I'm proud to say that the funds right now are coming from a balance sheet of a bank. So we are in the process of pioneering that as well, teaching them these underwriting models. So they just don't have these kind of underwriting models. They don't have, they're not leveraging technology like we are. And so they're not able, it just takes them a lot more to try to figure out and study bank statements that are not reporting all the cash. Or like, well, what's going on? They don't have the big data. They're not using those data sets like we are. So we go in and we look at these big datas and how much are they? I mean, I'll bring a big data stat to you that's really interesting. So this is just an interesting fact. Did you know that a business owner also has a home that has security in their home, a security service in their home? Like security cameras, whatever it is, an alarm system in their home, actually are perform better than a borrower that doesn't have a security installed in their home. So things like this are alternative ways that we can feel better about lending to the small micro enterprise. Now, banks are not looking at this big data the way we are. So that's the kind of stuff. I know it sounds a little bit silly, but it's proven in the records and in the performance. So these are all little things that we put together, and we collect these and gather this information to help us feel comfortable about lending to the businesses. The banks are not there.
Gotcha. All right, so we just have a few minutes left.
Yep.
So I want to make sure we get focused on, where we can provide the most value, of course, to the people watching at home. And I think that probably means, how can we get involved? We talked about partnering with Camino Financial. You gave an example of maybe writing some content for Camino Financial, but I'd like to, if possible, spend the last few minutes kind of digging deep into that. I think in the bigger picture, I know I'll speak for myself and say I get that Camino Financial can provide financing to businesses who can't get it elsewhere, right? Who can't get it from a big bank, because as we just underscored, big banks don't want to pay attention to the smaller businesses because of the ROI factor that we just mentioned, right? It just doesn't make sense for them. So they outsource to CDFIs, as you described, or other institutions to, get the financing done for the smaller businesses. So how can I, as a pro advisor, how can Dennis or Greg or Mariette, sort of get involved in partnering with Camino Financial? More specifically, I think you mentioned a partner program. Is there, tell me more.
So one, we have a referral program. So we do actually pay a referral fee. So we very much appreciate anyone that you refer to Camino Financial. So that's one incentive there, but that's really not the main reason why you would want to incentivize them. One, you just really want to refer especially if they're Spanish speaking, that they want to transact in Spanish and they feel more comfortable that way. Please do refer them to Camino Financial. We don't just offer a loan, we offer a ton of other resources. Number two, like Maria had mentioned, any if you want to write a blog, we have translators if you need the help in that manner. You know, please do. Any information, any business solutions that you can share on to our community, please be a part of that. They want to hear from you. Become that industry expert that's diving into this community and showing them that you're there and that you care. So push any information over to us. Get educated on the opportunity. Attend events. There's a ton of events and organizations and chambers of commerce right now that focus on helping Latino-owned business owners. That's another way that you can get involved. And mainly just, you know, again, being part, we're gonna basically leverage you. So any information that you can show us and stats that you can show us how businesses that started reporting, that started working more on a tax strategy, like Dennis mentioned, you know, they're more open to start showing some taxes and not wanting to underreport and looking at things very differently, that whole form of the future way of looking at things. Push those impact reports to us, show us, and we could show them that, hey, this is why you guys got to work with accountants. This is why you guys got to start doing your books right, you know? So that's another way that you guys can be extremely helpful. And then sharing, just invite, share, you know, let's be open to helping, because, you know, I always believe that there's always 10x growth whenever you're helping someone. You know, for every one person you help, there's a 10x return that you're going to get. So continue inviting them and being part of our community. I mean, that's really what it's about. Just like everybody taps into Nerd Enterprises in between Wall and Main, and it's an ongoing thing. You can't just jump in once in a while and jump out. It's the same thing here, you know, just be part of it, see where we're going, and you're going to start caring about the same concerns that Latino owners are caring about, and that's going to make a big difference.
Right. So be sure and join the Camino Financial Hazard Group on Facebook.
Yep.
Yvette has been posting a lot of links and resources, as has Ken. So thank you for those of you who are participating in the live feed on Facebook. It's really helpful. There are lots of resources out there. Yvette mentioned going and checking with your Chamber of Commerce. And bottom line, reach out to our friends here at Camino Financial and ask them, and they will definitely help you find where to go to get more plugged into the community. And that's what this is all about. It's about, like Yvette said beautifully, join the community and stay involved. Don't jump in and out. You know, you know, I'm sure there are people who are sort of lurking in a lot of these groups and thinking, you know, how do I become one of the quote cool kids, right? Somebody put a comment to that effect on my YouTube channel this morning. Like he said, I want to be one of the cool kids. It's not that hard to be one of the cool kids. All you have to do is show up. If you show up, you will be accepted and invited to be one of the cool kids, right? And we're not the cool kids anyway. We're the nerds. So be one of the nerds. Come join us and be a financial nerd and be a Latino financial nerd. I am now officially an adopted Latino financial nerd.
Actually, you're an adopted Latina.
Oh, really? I get Latina status? That's awesome.
Latina.
That's the places you'll go. I love Dr. Susan.
I have a question.
All right, real quick, because we're just about out of time.
It'd be really helpful to get a copy of the slide deck, and it'd also be really helpful to get links to a Spanish presentation. I'm sure you have YouTube videos in Spanish that sort of give an overview of what you do.
Yep.
So I was thinking of forwarding that to my clients.
Okay.
I've got a couple of clients I'm thinking of.
Okay, I will definitely get that in. Seth, I'll make sure we get that information out to all of you.
If you get it to me, I'll make sure we get it out to everybody.
Yep, not a problem.
So I want to end off with a quote that it's an Instagram quote. I want to start doing this every week because I just get some of the best stuff on Instagram. So this is a Mr. Rogers quote that somebody shared on Instagram this morning in my feed. And it says, you rarely have time for everything you want in this life, so you need to make choices, and hopefully your choices can come from a deep sense of who you are.
I like that.
For this week from Mr. Rogers on Instagram. So,
all right. Anyway. Thanks for having me, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing this.
Of course. Bye. We'll see you soon.
I hope that people will follow through and get the information and get.
Yep. No, I'm going to follow through and I'll get that to you right away.
Not you. I'm talking about everybody else. I know you'll follow through. I'm talking about the rest of the people watching who are thinking, hey, I'd like to get in on 1.38 trillion. You know, anyway. So get in on the 1.38 trillion. Just join the community and get involved and find out how you can help. because, like
All right.
Mariette mentioned earlier, it's a very fast-growing sector of the
Yes, it is.
of our economy. And just like
Yeah.
millennials is a big growing sector,
Yeah.
this is sort of a subset of millennials that definitely needs attention and deserves attention. So
Yep.
do it. Give it your
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seth, really quickly, Seth, don't forget to let everybody know that we're going to be hanging out together next week.
That's right. Thank you for
Let's
reminding me.
go.
Mariette and I are going to be hanging out at the Los Angeles Accounting and Finance Show. How exciting is that? Accounting and Finance Show, right?
Yes.
So come on down. We're going to be at the Los Angeles Convention Center. I'm going to be speaking on the 25th, which is next Wednesday. Mariette and I will be sharing the stage for a minute on the 26th. So on Between Wall and Main Strategy Forum, just go to the events part, and you'll see the event for that with all the information. And we're going to have an amazing after party afterwards. It's either going to be hosted at Camino Financial or we're going to find a local restaurant. Just depends on how many people RSVP. So if you are going, make sure you RSVP. Let us know for sure you're coming, because that is going to help us decide where the best place is to host it. So get
Awesome.
involved, and we'll see you next week. And remember,
All
next
right.
week on Zoom In, we're going to be
Thank
doing
you.
tips and tricks for content creators. I'll see you next week.
Bye,
Thanks.
guys.
Bye.